Hey guys, I'm Eliza and welcome to another vlog. I just wanted to say thank you to those who have waited it out. The last week I haven't been able to do a video, unfortunately. If you watched my last video, I did give you a little bit of a heads up that I was going to be a little bit busy this week. So it was all leading up to like my little brother's 21st and then him going overseas, and my little sister as well. They were leaving for Europe yesterday. So I think they're at the 21-hour point now. So if you haven't ever been to Australia, if you're not from here, and or flown out of Australia to anywhere like Europe or the US, it's a long time. So like I said, I think they've been flying for about 21 hours now, and they should be arriving pretty soon, I think. I can't remember exactly, but they're flying into Amsterdam. So I think the first flight was about no, that's wrong. I think the first flight was about 13 hours and the second flight is about 7. So there were other places I'm sure they would rather have been during that time, but I'm pretty excited for them. Obviously I'm a little bit upset, I'm missing them, but thank you to those who have waited it out, like I said. And it was a little bit hard not to do a video, but I just purely didn't have any time at all whatsoever. As always, and I've said this already, but thank you to those who have been watching and for those who have commented. That's kind of what this video is actually going to be about. I think it's actually, I'm going to check who wrote that comment now. Obviously I wanted to be able to do more videos, but it has been nice to hear your comments, see your comments. I think it's Pedro who said in one of my videos that it was an interesting topic and that you'll be thinking about it all night. And that's kind of actually, like I said, I mean, I love your suggestions and your comments and stuff, and it kind of gives me something to go on from there. And I think that's why this video is kind of going to be about interesting topics and critical thinking, and just, I guess, knuckling down and discussing why certain topics are interesting, and also, I guess, how to encourage critical thinking so that people can have these discussions, and I guess why critical thinking matters in the first place. Having conversations and talking about all sorts of interesting topics, I think it just starts a dialogue. It begins a conversation or an argument, which are all certain things to distracted me now. I mean, what do interesting topics teach us? I think obviously they start a dialogue first of all. It is good to discuss topics and from multiple different points of view to, I guess, start something, to introduce a topic, and I guess why does it even matter in the first place to discuss these things is, I think, it leads to this critical thinking, the idea that we can look at something and provide evidence to help make judgments and to further discuss things, and I guess come up with solutions or to be aware of certain topics, because critical thinking does matter. I'll give you some examples of that shortly. For anyone who has been in my situation, and I'm sure we all have, but you've been in a situation where you are talking with friends about an interesting topic. There are so many topics that we can be discussing, and these things start something. They introduce an element of argument, and argument's not necessarily a bad thing. I think this is something that helps with critical thinking. When it comes to interesting topics, what does it actually teach us? I think personally, for me, when talking about interesting topics, it starts a dialogue. It's not every day you just talk about the deep and meaningful sort of topics, I guess, whether it be space in the universe, the meaning of life, the argument of heaven and hell, good, evil, truth, lies. Whatever the argument is, it starts a dialogue, it starts a conversation, and it gives the other person a point of view, and it may be obviously different to their own, but you can actually start finding answers. Sometimes we're not going to have the answers for everything, and I find it very fascinating, and I do this myself, but sometimes, you know, I'm so determined to prove my own version of the truth, and I may not even necessarily know the answer entirely, but why are we so passionate about doing that? Why are we so determined to prove that our version of the story is right, our version is true? And especially, why does it matter so much if there's never even going to be an answer? For instance, talking about space in the universe, there are going to be things that we can figure out. We have done so much in space, but there is so much space out there that we're just not going to know, not in our lifetime anyway, and yet we'll argue about it till we're blue in the face. These things, the topics are interesting. They keep you thinking all night. They will keep you arguing for hours or talking about it forever with friends or family or whatever. As I said, interesting topics can lead to critical thinking. And critical thinking obviously is not something necessarily that it's led to, but when you're talking about interesting topics or complex topics or things that we don't necessarily have all the answers to, it does require it does require critical thinking. It requires evidence to help you inform your decision or your judgment or your opinion or point of view on that particular thing. Obviously, first and foremost, let me just say, do not believe everything you read on the internet. The internet is an amazing thing, and I love the internet. I will forever love the internet, but there is a lot of shit on there. There's a lot of stuff that you have to sift through, and it requires you to be critical. It requires you to see the arguments from both sides before you can form an opinion on your own. I don't know if there's necessarily dumb people, or there are people who just simply don't think things through. There kind of has to be a cause for things. There has to be something that leads to something, or determines something, or influences something. For instance, an apple doesn't just fall. An apple falls off the tree because of gravity, and obviously it's ready to fall. So there are certain things that you have to look at. I don't necessarily know if education helps critical thinking. Obviously it does in some particular ways, but it's about the process. It's about finding evidence. It's about exploring. As I said, we don't always have the answers. Sometimes there are multiple theories, but it is important to share all of those theories so that you can come up with your own conclusions. That's the whole point of critical thinking, is coming up with conclusions and having an opinion based on evidence. I don't know, see what you can find, explore, discuss, debate, question, theorize, hypothesize, argue, research, connect the dots and fill the gaps to give yourself a broader, deeper and more meaningful understanding of things, of the world, of your surroundings, of arguments, of topics, of decisions, of controversies, whatever it is. It's important to find that information. As I said, there's going to be a shit ton of information on the internet regardless, but there are some topics that do require you to talk about them. Sometimes what used to be considered taboo is now really necessary to find answers to discuss, to come up with solutions. How we're going to inform future generations, how we're going to incorporate that into our everyday life, and how we're going to improve as a society and citizens. Obviously, on top of that, there's also just the danger of not being a critical thinker. You know, it's almost like if you're not critical thinking, you could be gullible. You could almost believe whatever, and we've seen this in situations where you have particular dictators or leaders and convincing large groups of people to do something, and this social conformity almost rejects the idea of critical thinking and just accepting for what it is or what you see around you without really understanding the meaning or why you're doing it or why it's important, or looking at it from different angles, basically. If people aren't critical thinkers, they'll be in situations falling for like those pyramid schemes, or like I said, even further on that extreme, but you know, those mass suicides, being tricked, being almost led astray because of this social conformity and this safe feeling of what everybody's doing. It takes guts to be critical. It takes guts to have a different opinion. But if you can back that up by evidence, then you should be fine to hold your own, to argue your point and to form your beliefs and your values, and for whatever it is you're trying to argue. Whatever it is that you're arguing, whether it has a huge effect on humanity or it's literally deciding the better fruit out of a banana or an apple. Obviously, some things you can't necessarily have answers to. Some are purely opinion and some are purely based on experience. But there is an element to all of this that I find extremely fascinating, and I think it's just this discussion, whatever it is, the unknown, this perspective outside of my own, so that I can prove my point, so that I can find something that proves that I'm right. And it's this incessant need to be right. I'm not sure if everybody has that, but what it does is it makes me a more critical thinker. It makes me analyze the argument that I'm saying. It makes me try to ensure that I am doing the correct thing or having the right opinion. And again, there's right or wrong argument, but as long as I'm looking for evidence and I'm critical of whatever it is, I'm confident in myself that I'm not going to do anything stupid. And if I do, it probably means because I haven't been as informed as I would have liked to have been. But either way, encourage people to think critically, not just take your word for it. Don't take my word for things. You know, form your own opinion on whether everyone should be critical thinkers, whether everybody can be critical thinkers. I believe everybody can. I don't know. I don't think it's like a gene or, you know, a switch that can be switched on. I don't necessarily think that it has everything to do with education or IQ. I think it requires people to be aware that there are other opinions. So if we're very self-absorbed and we don't have conversations with other people, we go around thinking that our opinion that we've formed is the correct one, because no one's ever argued otherwise. No one's ever said to me that that's wrong or that's different. It is hard to hear that we're wrong. It's hard to hear that we've been wrong, especially if it's for a long time and you remember telling 2 people yesterday that that was true, and now you're going to sound like an idiot. Yep, I've done that a million times. It happens. But you know what? Next time I see him, maybe if I care enough, I'd bring it up. You know what? Big deal. Next time, if it ever happens, I'm going to say the right thing. Maybe they will never know. Maybe they'll go through life thinking I'm an idiot. And so what? Anyway, I'm going to cut that there, guys. I'm sorry about the lighting. It's actually 6 o'clock at night, PM on Tuesday. So hopefully I can get this up by tomorrow, being a Wednesday. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do much editing tonight. I do have volleyball, so we'll see how we go. But again, I do want to thank for your comments, and I'm not sure if I already said this, but Alberto as well, and Pedro obviously, you know, your comments have been really nice, and it blows me away that, you know, with YouTube you kind of almost expect that someone is just going to troll you because it's the internet, and you know, you're putting yourself out there, and there's always that fear. But to get some nice comments, as I've said before, it does give me that little bit of a push and that extra motivation. So I will see you very soon for my next video. Hopefully I'll have one pretty quickly up after this one. Again, sorry about the lighting. I just wanted to get a video done today. I couldn't be bothered waiting for the sun to come up tomorrow. Unfortunately, this is the only chance I got to do it. So hopefully this isn't a too long a video and it made some kind of sense, but I would love to hear your thoughts on it, opinions or whatever, and leave in the comments below. Hopefully next video I'll be a lot more rested. Hopefully the lighting will be better. Perhaps I'll make a little bit more sense or a little bit more interesting if you didn't necessarily enjoy this one. So until then, until next time, take it easy, take care of yourselves, have fun, be happy, and peace out.